Welcome to Stoic Vivu, where ancient wisdom transforms modern communities. I'm here to help you discover how 2,000-year-old Stoic philosophy can turn you into a powerful force for positive change in your neighborhood, workplace, and relationships. Here's what's happening in communities across America. People feel more isolated than ever despite being more connected digitally. You see problems everywhere: struggling neighbors, declining civic engagement, polarized politics, and social media dividing rather than uniting people. You want to make a difference, but you feel overwhelmed by the scale of challenges and uncertain about where to start or whether your individual efforts could possibly matter. Maybe you've tried getting involved before, only to feel frustrated by ineffective organizations, political infighting, or the sense that real change seems impossible. Perhaps you've become cynical about human nature after witnessing selfishness, cruelty, or indifference in your community. You might feel torn between wanting to help and protecting yourself from disappointment. But what if I told you that the most effective community builders throughout history faced these exact same challenges? The Stoic philosophers of ancient Rome understood something profound about creating positive change. Transformation happens not through grand gestures or perfect systems, but through consistent individual actions rooted in timeless principles. Marcus Aurelius led the Roman Empire during plague, war, and social upheaval, yet he never lost sight of his duty to serve the common good. Seneca used his wealth and influence to support education, infrastructure, and social programs that benefited ordinary citizens. Epictetus, despite experiencing slavery and poverty, taught that every person has the power to contribute meaningfully to their community through daily choices and interactions. They discovered 6 powerful secrets for community transformation that work regardless of political climate, economic conditions, or social circumstances. These aren't feel-good platitudes or naive optimism. They're practical strategies tested through centuries of real-world application. Today, you'll learn how to find hope and inspiration even during dark times by focusing on the helpers who surround you. You'll discover how to use whatever influence you have, whether it's massive or minimal, to lift others up rather than tear them down. You'll understand how simple kindness in everyday interactions creates ripple effects that transform entire communities. You'll explore how to build the kind of community you actually want to live in through direct action rather than waiting for others to create change. You'll learn why helping one person at a time is often more powerful than trying to solve large-scale problems. And you'll discover how raising children with strong values creates positive change that lasts for generations. These secrets work because they address fundamental human needs that never change: the need for hope, connection, purpose, and meaning. While technology evolves and circumstances shift, people still want to feel valued, supported, and part of something bigger than themselves. The strongest communities aren't built by perfect people in ideal circumstances. They're created by ordinary individuals who understand how small, consistent actions compound into extraordinary transformation. Let's begin this journey toward community transformation with our first secret. Secret 1. Find hope by looking for the helpers around you. You're watching the news as wildfires devastate entire neighborhoods in California. The images are heartbreaking: families fleeing their homes with nothing but the clothes on their backs, historic communities reduced to ash, and smoke-filled skies that look apocalyptic. Your social media feeds fill with anger, blame, and despair. People argue about causes while others share increasingly dire predictions about the future. You feel overwhelmed by the scale of destruction and helpless in the face of such massive tragedy. In moments like these, you have a choice that determines whether you contribute to despair or hope in your community. You can focus on the destruction and dysfunction, or you can apply a profound insight that has helped people maintain optimism and take positive action during humanity's darkest hours. This wisdom comes from an unexpected source. Fred Rogers, the beloved children's television host, who learned it from his mother during his own childhood. When young Fred felt scared watching frightening events on the news, his mother would tell him, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." This simple practice transformed how he saw the world and eventually influenced millions of children and adults. But this isn't just modern advice. It reflects a core Stoic principle that Marcus Aurelius practiced while leading the Roman Empire through plague, warfare, and social chaos. Instead of being consumed by the enormous problems surrounding him, Marcus deliberately focused his attention on virtue wherever he found it. In his personal journal, he wrote about the courage of soldiers, the dedication of public servants, and the kindness of ordinary citizens who continued serving others despite extraordinary hardships. Focus on the process, not the fruits of activity, Marcus reminded himself. Surrender the fruits to the divine. Work for the work's sake. He understood that when you focus on people who are helping rather than those who are harming, you don't just maintain hope, you inspire action. Let's return to those wildfire images with this Stoic perspective. Instead of focusing solely on destruction, you notice the helicopter pilots flying dangerous missions to rescue stranded families. You see prisoners people society has written off, risking their lives to fight fires and protect communities they've never been allowed to join. You observe neighbors opening their homes to strangers, volunteers coordinating relief efforts, and medical teams working around the clock to treat victims. These helpers aren't extraordinary people with special powers. They're ordinary humans who've chosen to respond to crisis with service rather than self-protection. Their example proves that even in humanity's worst moments, people consistently choose courage, compassion, and community over fear, selfishness, and isolation. This practice becomes even more powerful when you apply it to everyday situations in your own community. You're frustrated with rising crime in your neighborhood, but then you notice the teacher who stays late every day to tutor struggling students. You're discouraged by political division, but then you see neighbors from opposite parties working together to organize a community cleanup. You're worried about social isolation among elderly residents, but then you discover the teenager who visits nursing homes weekly to play piano for residents. Marcus Aurelius understood that this focus on helpers serves multiple purposes. First, it provides accurate information about human nature. Yes, people can be cruel, selfish, and destructive, but they can also be incredibly generous, brave, and caring. When you only focus on negative examples, you develop a distorted view that doesn't reflect the full reality of human behavior. Second, focusing on helpers restores your faith in the possibility of positive change. Cynicism is easy when you only see problems, but it becomes much harder when you regularly witness people solving problems through direct action. These examples prove that improvement is possible and show you concrete ways to contribute. Third, this practice inspires you to become a helper yourself. When you see a firefighter risking their life to save a stranger's home, you feel called to consider how you might serve others. When you notice a neighbor quietly shoveling an elderly person's driveway, you start looking for similar opportunities in your own area. Seneca taught that virtue is contagious. When you witness excellence, it awakens excellence within yourself. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, he wrote. When you end your focus on what's broken and begin focusing on what's working, you naturally start contributing to solutions rather than just complaining about problems. Start practicing this secret immediately. When you encounter disturbing news or community problems, deliberately ask yourself, who are the helpers in this situation? What are people doing to make things better? Seek out these stories, share them with others, and let them influence your own choices about how to respond to challenges. Create a daily habit of noticing helpers in your immediate environment. The barista who remembers regular customers' names and asks about their families. The bus driver who waits patiently for elderly passengers. The coworker who always offers to help when someone is overwhelmed. The neighbor who keeps an eye on houses when people travel. These everyday helpers might not make headlines, but they create the foundation of healthy communities. They prove that positive change happens through countless small acts of consideration, service, and care rather than just dramatic heroic gestures. This shift in focus doesn't mean ignoring real problems or becoming naively optimistic. It means developing a complete and accurate picture of your community that includes both challenges and the people working to address them. When you see problems clearly but also notice the helpers, you become someone who joins the helpers rather than someone who only complains about the problems. Remember Mr. Rogers' insight? When I was a boy and I would see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, "Look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping." This practice has guided people through wars, natural disasters, economic collapses, and social upheaval because it reflects a fundamental truth about human nature. Even in the darkest times, people consistently choose to help. Building on this foundation of hope and positive awareness, our next secret explores how you can transform from simply noticing helpers to becoming a helper yourself by using whatever influence you have to lift others up. Secret 2. Use your voice and influence to lift others up. You're scrolling through your social media feed during lunch break, and you see a post from a colleague sharing their small business launch. It's clearly something they're nervous about. The post is humble, asking for support, and you can sense their vulnerability. You have two choices in this moment. Keep scrolling without engaging, or use your platform to lift them up. You think, my like or comment won't really matter, and almost move on. But then you realize you have 300 followers, including several people who might genuinely benefit from your colleague's service. This moment reveals a profound truth that most people miss. You already have influence, and how you use it determines whether you contribute to the cynicism and division in your community or become a force for positive change. The question isn't whether you have a platform, it's whether you'll use whatever platform you have responsibly. Seneca understood this principle intimately. As one of the wealthiest men in the Roman Empire and advisor to Emperor Nero, he had enormous influence. He could have used his position purely for personal gain, staying silent about injustice to protect his wealth and status. Instead, he chose to use his influence to promote education, support public infrastructure, and advocate for the humane treatment of slaves. Even when this stance eventually cost him his life, he maintained that using influence for the common good was a fundamental moral obligation. "We were born to work together," Seneca wrote in his letters. He understood that influence, whether massive or minimal, comes with the responsibility to contribute to the welfare of others rather than just yourself. Your influence might seem small compared to celebrities, politicians, or business leaders, but it's more powerful than you realize. You have relationships with family members, friends, co-workers, neighbors, and acquaintances. You have conversations, make recommendations, share opinions, and model behavior that others notice. Even if you only influence 10 people directly, and each of them influences 10 others, your positive impact can reach hundreds of lives. Consider how this applies in practice. You're at a neighborhood meeting where residents are discussing a proposal for a new community garden. Several people express skepticism, worried about maintenance costs and potential problems. You could stay silent to avoid conflict, or you could speak up to share research you've done about successful community gardens in similar neighborhoods. Your voice, informed and supportive, might be exactly what tips the discussion toward approval of a project that brings people together for years. Or imagine you're in a team meeting where a quieter colleague shares an idea that gets overlooked in favor of louder voices. You have the influence to circle back and say, "I think Sarah's suggestion about streamlining the approval process deserves more discussion. Could you elaborate on that approach, Sarah?" This simple use of your voice validates her contribution and might lead to implementing a solution that improves everyone's work experience. Epictetus, despite having experienced slavery and physical disability, taught that every person has the power to influence others through their choices and character. Wealth consists in not having great possessions, but in having few wants, he said. But the same principle applies to influence. Power consists not in having a massive platform, but in using whatever platform you have wisely. The Stoics understood that responsible influence requires three key elements: truthfulness, helpfulness, and courage. Truthfulness means sharing accurate information rather than spreading rumors or misinformation. Helpfulness means promoting ideas, people, and causes that genuinely benefit your community, rather than just entertainment or personal gain. Courage means speaking up for what's right even when it's unpopular or might cost you something. Consider the story of Helvidius Priscus, a Roman senator who used his influence to oppose imperial policies he believed were harmful to citizens. When Emperor Vespasian warned him to stop speaking out or face consequences, Helvidius replied, "It may be in your power to prevent me from being a senator, but as long as I am one, I must act as a senator should act." He understood that influence comes with obligations that transcend personal safety or convenience. You face similar choices regularly, though perhaps less dramatically. When your friend shares conspiracy theories on social media, you can choose to gently provide factual information from reliable sources. When coworkers are gossiping cruelly about someone, you can redirect the conversation or simply not participate. When you see small businesses or artists in your community promoting their work, you can share their posts to help them reach more potential customers. Start practicing this secret by conducting an influence audit. List all the ways you currently impact others: social media platforms, workplace conversations, family discussions, neighborhood interactions, volunteer activities, consumer choices, and personal relationships. For each area, ask yourself, am I using this influence to lift others up or just to advance my own interests? Then commit to specific practices that amplify positive voices and causes. Share posts from local businesses you genuinely recommend. Highlight the achievements of people in your network who deserve recognition. When you see someone being unfairly criticized, speak up with facts and perspective. When you encounter hatred or misinformation, respond with truth and compassion rather than matching the negative energy. Remember that responsible influence isn't about being perfectly informed on every issue or feeling obligated to have opinions about everything. It's about using your voice strategically to support what genuinely deserves support and avoiding amplifying what causes harm. Seneca captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." When you end your passive consumption of information and begin actively using your influence for good, you transform from someone who complains about problems to someone who contributes to solutions. The ripple effects of responsible influence are enormous. When you use your platform to lift others up, you model behavior that encourages others to do the same. When you highlight helpers and positive initiatives, you inspire more people to become helpers. When you speak up for truth and kindness, you make it easier for others to do likewise. This understanding of your influence and responsibility naturally leads us to our next secret, which explores how every individual interaction becomes an opportunity to demonstrate the power of genuine kindness in building stronger communities. Secret 3. Make every interaction a chance to show kindness. You're standing in line at the grocery store after a long, frustrating day at work. The cashier is moving slowly, apparently new and still learning the system. The customer ahead of you is getting increasingly agitated, making sharp comments about the wait and rolling their eyes dramatically. Other people in line start joining the complaints about the store, the staff, the inconvenience. You feel the familiar pull to participate in this collective irritation, to bond with strangers through shared frustration. In this moment, you face a choice that reveals who you really are and what kind of community you want to live in. You can add to the negativity and make a difficult day worse for someone who's just trying to do their job. Or you can use this ordinary interaction as an opportunity to demonstrate something better. Marcus Aurelius faced this exact challenge on a massive scale every day. As Roman emperor, he dealt with incompetent officials, demanding citizens, political rivals, and foreign enemies who frustrated him constantly. Yet he made a conscious choice that shaped both his character and his legacy. In his personal journal, he wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." Marcus understood that other people's poor behavior was their choice, but his response was his choice. He refused to let others' rudeness make him rude, others' impatience make him impatient, or others' cruelty make him cruel. Instead, he treated every interaction as an opportunity to practice virtue and model the behavior he wanted to see in the world. Let's return to your grocery store scenario with this Stoic perspective. While others complain about the slow cashier, you make eye contact and offer a genuine smile. When it's your turn, you say, "Take your time. I'm not in a rush." If the cashier apologizes for the wait, you respond, "No worries at all. We all have learning curves." These simple words cost you nothing but can completely transform someone's day and shift the entire energy of that space. This isn't just about being nice. It's about understanding that every interaction is a building block of community culture. When you choose kindness in moments where others choose irritation, you create what sociologists call positive contagion. Your behavior gives others permission to be kinder too. The next customer might follow your example rather than the negative one set by the complainers. Consider Cleanthes, the ancient Stoic philosopher who worked as a boxer and night laborer to support his studies. One day in Rome, he encountered a man who was publicly beating himself and crying out in despair. While crowds gathered to watch the spectacle with amusement or disgust, Cleanthes alone stepped forward. He gently stopped the man and said simply, "You're not talking to a bad person." This act of human compassion in a moment when everyone else chose cruelty exemplified the Stoic understanding that individual kindness can be revolutionary. You encounter similar opportunities every day. The coworker who seems overwhelmed by their workload. You can offer genuine help or just complain about how their stress affects the team. The neighbor whose dog barks early in the morning. You can approach them with understanding about pet training challenges or leave an angry note. The stranger who cuts in front of you in traffic. You can curse and honk or assume they're dealing with an emergency you know nothing about. Each choice shapes not only that specific moment, but also your own character and the overall tone of your community. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." When you end the cycle of responding to rudeness with rudeness and begin responding with kindness, you create space for better interactions to flourish. This practice requires understanding the difference between kindness and weakness. Kindness isn't accepting abuse or failing to establish appropriate boundaries. It's choosing to treat people with dignity while maintaining your own standards. You can be kind to the rude customer while still asking them to lower their voice. You can be patient with the struggling coworker while still maintaining deadlines. You can be understanding about someone's challenges while still protecting your own well-being. Marcus Aurelius captured this balance perfectly. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. When someone treats you poorly, matching their energy gives them power over your character. Maintaining kindness while protecting your boundaries demonstrates that your values aren't conditional on others' behavior. Start practicing this secret by preparing mentally for difficult interactions. Before entering situations where you might encounter frustrated or difficult people, customer service calls, crowded public spaces, stressful work meetings, remind yourself that this is an opportunity to practice virtue. Decide in advance that you'll be the person who brings calm energy to tense situations. Develop specific practices for showing kindness in common scenarios. Make genuine eye contact and smile at service workers. Say please and thank you consistently. Ask people how they're doing and actually listen to their answers. Offer help when you notice someone struggling. Express appreciation for good service. Apologize sincerely when you make mistakes. Pay attention to how kindness creates ripple effects. Notice how servers' faces light up when you treat them as human beings rather than just order takers. Observe how your patience with a struggling colleague helps them perform better, which benefits the entire team. Watch how your friendliness toward neighbors creates a more welcoming atmosphere on your street. Remember that kindness isn't about being perfect or never feeling frustrated. It's about choosing your response based on the person you want to be rather than just reacting to whatever energy others bring to the interaction. Some days you'll succeed better than others, and that's completely normal. The goal is progress, not perfection. Every time you choose kindness over irritation, understanding over judgment, or patience over frustration, you strengthen both your own character and your community's culture. You prove that positive change happens one interaction at a time. This foundation of individual kindness naturally scales up to our next secret: which explores how you can extend this same caring approach to actively building the kind of community you want to live in through direct action and engagement. Secret 4. Build the community you want to live in. You're walking through your neighborhood and notice the same problems you've complained about for months. The small park has overgrown weeds and broken equipment. The local coffee shop that brought people together closed last year, and neighbors barely acknowledge each other anymore. You feel frustrated about the decline, but also helpless. These seem like big problems that require someone else to solve. You think, if only the city would do something, or someone should really organize people around here. In this moment of frustration, you're missing one of the most powerful truths the Stoic philosophers discovered. You don't have to wait for permission, perfect conditions, or someone else's leadership to start building the community you want to live in. The power to create positive change has been in your hands all along. The Stoics understood this principle as part of their concept of cosmopolitanism. The idea that we are all citizens of the world with responsibilities to contribute to the common good. But they also knew that global citizenship begins with local action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Your well-being and your community's well-being are interconnected, and you have both the power and obligation to improve both. This isn't abstract philosophy. It's practical wisdom that people have used to transform communities throughout history. Consider the founding of Stoicism itself. Zeno of Citium, the philosophy's founder, was walking through the Athenian agora when he encountered a bookseller reading from the works of Socrates. That chance encounter in a bustling marketplace, a community space where people gathered to trade, learn, and connect, changed his life and eventually influenced millions of people across centuries. The agora wasn't built by waiting for perfect city planning. It emerged because individual merchants, philosophers, and citizens recognized that they needed a place to come together. They created the community space they wanted to exist, and it became the foundation for democracy, philosophy, and civic life. You can apply this same principle in your modern context. Instead of waiting for someone else to organize neighborhood cleanup days, you can start by cleaning up the area around your own property and asking neighbors if they'd like to join you. Instead of complaining that there's nowhere for people to gather, you can host a monthly potluck in your backyard or organize informal coffee meetups at a local cafe. Start with what you can directly control and influence. You notice that elderly neighbors seem isolated, so you begin taking evening walks and striking up conversations with people working in their yards. This simple practice leads to discovering that Mrs. Chun needs help with grocery shopping, which leads to organizing an informal neighborhood support network for seniors. Your approach doesn't need to be grand or complicated. Seneca, despite his wealth and influence, understood that the most powerful community building happens through consistent small actions rather than dramatic gestures. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, he wrote. When you end your passive consumption of community decline and begin actively creating community connection, you become the catalyst others were waiting for. Consider how this works in practice. You're tired of the lack of safe spaces for children to play, so you research grant opportunities for playground equipment and organize parents to submit a proposal to the city council. While waiting for official approval, you start hosting weekly games in the park with whatever equipment you can provide yourself. Other parents begin joining, children make friends, and suddenly you have a thriving community gathering that happens regardless of the playground equipment status. The Stoic approach to community building focuses on virtue rather than outcomes. You act according to your values, creating connection, promoting safety, supporting neighbors, without needing to control the results. Sometimes your efforts will succeed beyond your expectations. Sometimes they'll fail or face unexpected obstacles. But the act of trying, the relationships you build in the process, and the example you set all contribute to positive change regardless of specific outcomes. Marcus Aurelius faced this challenge while leading the Roman Empire. He couldn't control whether senators would support his policies, whether foreign enemies would respect treaties, or whether citizens would embrace his vision of Roman society. But he could control his own commitment to justice, his daily efforts to serve the common good, and his consistency in modeling the behavior he wanted to see from others. This principle applies to every level of community involvement. You can't control whether your neighbors will participate in the book club you start, but you can control showing up consistently and creating a welcoming environment. You can't control whether the city council will approve your proposal for better street lighting, but you can control researching the issue thoroughly and presenting your case respectfully. The beauty of this approach is that it creates positive change even when your specific initiatives don't succeed. When you organize a community garden project that gets rejected by the homeowners association, the relationships you build while advocating for it still strengthen neighborhood connections. When your attempt to revive the local business district doesn't attract enough support, your effort still demonstrates that someone cares about the area's future. Start implementing this secret by identifying one specific aspect of your community that you'd like to improve. Choose something concrete and achievable rather than trying to solve every problem at once. If you want more social connection, organize a monthly neighborhood potluck. If you want safer streets, research and propose specific lighting or traffic improvements. If you want better support for local businesses, create a social media group that promotes and reviews them. Take action immediately rather than waiting for perfect plans or ideal circumstances. Community building is messy, imperfect work that requires learning as you go. You'll make mistakes, encounter resistance, and face unexpected challenges. But you'll also discover allies you didn't know existed, develop skills you didn't know you had, and create positive changes you didn't think were possible. Remember that every thriving community was built by people who decided to take responsibility for creating what they wanted to see rather than waiting for someone else to do it. This hands-on approach to community building naturally leads us to our next secret, which explores how focusing on helping individual people often creates more meaningful change than trying to solve large-scale problems all at once. Secret 5. Change the world one person at a time. You're scrolling through news about global challenges, climate change, poverty, political divisions, social injustice, and feeling overwhelmed by the scale of problems facing humanity. The issues seem so massive and complex that you wonder what difference one person could possibly make. You think about donating to large organizations or signing online petitions, but these actions feel disconnected from real impact. Meanwhile, you pass homeless individuals on your way to work without making eye contact. Ignore the elderly neighbor who seems lonely, and barely notice the stressed coworker who's clearly struggling with personal challenges. This disconnect reveals a profound misunderstanding about how meaningful change actually happens. While you're paralyzed by global problems you can't directly influence, you're overlooking countless opportunities to create immediate, tangible impact in the lives of individual people right around you. The Stoics understood this principle through their emphasis on what they called preferred indifference, outcomes we naturally want to achieve but can't directly control. You can't single-handedly solve homelessness, but you can help one homeless person get a meal today. You can't eliminate loneliness in society, but you can spend 30 minutes listening to your neighbor who hasn't had a meaningful conversation in weeks. You can't fix your company's culture overnight, but you can offer specific support to the colleague who's drowning in responsibilities. Consider the famous starfish story that illustrates this principle perfectly. A man walking on the beach after a storm finds thousands of starfish washed up on the sand, dying in the sun. He begins throwing them back into the ocean one by one. Another person approaches and says, "You'll never make a difference. There are too many starfish." The man picks up another starfish, throws it back, and replies, "It made a difference to that one." This story captures the Stoic understanding that virtue lies in acting according to your principles regardless of whether you can solve every problem. Epictetus taught that we are like actors in a play. Our job is to perform our role excellently, not to control the entire production. Your role includes helping the specific people you encounter, not saving everyone you'll never meet. Marcus Aurelius applied this principle while managing the Roman Empire. Instead of being paralyzed by the impossibility of creating perfect justice for all citizens, he focused on making fair decisions about specific cases brought before him each day. Instead of trying to eliminate all corruption at once, he promoted individual officials based on merit and held specific people accountable for their actions. His daily commitment to individual justice created systemic change over time. You can apply this same approach to your modern challenges. Instead of feeling guilty about global poverty while doing nothing locally, you can volunteer at a food bank in your community. Instead of posting about social justice issues online without action, you can mentor one young person who needs guidance. Instead of worrying about the state of education generally, you can tutor a specific student who's struggling with reading. This individual focus doesn't mean ignoring larger issues. It means recognizing that systemic change happens through countless personal interactions and relationships. When you help one person develop job skills, you're addressing unemployment. When you support one family through a crisis, you're strengthening community resilience. When you treat one person with dignity who's usually ignored, you're promoting social justice. Seneca demonstrated this principle through his personal relationships and business practices. Rather than just writing about virtue in abstract terms, he treated his slaves with respect during an era when they were considered property. He provided financial support to specific individuals pursuing education. He used his business success to fund public projects that benefited ordinary citizens. These individual acts of kindness and justice created ripple effects that influenced Roman society's treatment of marginalized people. The beauty of this approach is that it provides immediate feedback and genuine connection. When you help a specific person, you see direct results. You witness their relief, gratitude, and progress. You build a real relationship rather than just contributing anonymously to distant causes. This personal connection sustains your motivation and helps you understand what kind of help actually makes a difference. Start practicing this secret by identifying people in your immediate circle who could benefit from specific assistance. Your aging parent might need help organizing their medications. Your friend who's job hunting might benefit from practicing interview skills with you. Your neighbor might appreciate help with yard work they can no longer manage alone. Your coworker might need someone to listen while they process a difficult life transition. Make these individual connections a priority over abstract causes. This doesn't mean abandoning broader social concerns, but it means grounding your values in real relationships with real people. When you understand homelessness through a relationship with someone who's experienced it, your approach to the issue becomes more informed and effective. When you comprehend educational challenges through tutoring a specific student, your advocacy becomes more practical and targeted. Pay attention to opportunities for individual help that arise naturally in your daily routine. The cashier who seems overwhelmed during a busy shift might appreciate a genuine compliment about their patience. The parent struggling with a crying child in public might benefit from an understanding smile rather than judgment. The person ahead of you who's short on cash for groceries might appreciate you covering the difference. Remember that individual impact often scales up in unexpected ways. The person you help through a crisis might be inspired to help others facing similar challenges. The child you mentor might grow up to become a teacher who influences hundreds of students. The coworker you support during a difficult period might develop leadership skills that benefit entire teams. Cleanthes, the Stoic philosopher who worked as a laborer while studying philosophy, embodied this principle when he stopped to help a stranger who was publicly harming himself in distress. While crowds watched with amusement, Cleanthes alone offered human compassion. This single act of individual kindness exemplified how personal virtue creates social change. This focus on individual impact naturally leads us to our final secret, which explores how raising children with strong values creates positive change that extends far beyond your family to influence future generations and transform society over time. Secret 6. Raise the next generation to change everything. You're watching your child interact with their friends at the playground, and you notice something that makes you pause. When another child falls and starts crying, your 8-year-old immediately goes over to help them up and ask if they're okay. Other children continue playing, but yours stays with the upset child until they feel better. In that moment, you realize you're witnessing something profound, not just childhood kindness, but the early formation of character that could influence countless lives over the next 70 years. This scene reveals the most powerful secret for long-term community transformation. The values, habits, and character you help develop in children today will shape the world for decades to come. While other forms of social change work within single generations, parenting creates a multi-generational impact that extends far beyond your own family to influence entire communities and societies. Marcus Aurelius understood this principle intimately. Despite the enormous pressures of ruling the Roman Empire during plague, war, and political upheaval, he devoted significant time and attention to his children's character development. In his personal journal, he reflected on his obligation not just to govern well during his lifetime, but to raise future leaders who would continue serving the common good after his death. "What we do now echoes in eternity," Marcus wrote, recognizing that a parent's influence on one child's character could affect thousands of people across multiple generations. The child who learns patience from watching you handle stress will likely teach patience to their own children. The teenager who sees you treating strangers with respect will probably model similar behavior throughout their adult life. The young person who observes you helping neighbors during difficulties will likely become someone who builds strong communities wherever they live. This multi-generational thinking transforms how you approach daily parenting challenges. When your teenager tests boundaries by staying out past curfew, you're not just addressing immediate rule breaking, you're helping them develop self-discipline that will serve them in college, career, relationships, and eventually their own parenting. When your child struggles with sharing toys, you're not just preventing playground conflicts. You're laying the groundwork for adult generosity and cooperation. Consider how this applies to your everyday interactions with children in your life. When you consistently follow through on promises you make to your kids, you're teaching them that integrity matters more than convenience. When you apologize sincerely after losing your temper, you're modeling how to take responsibility for mistakes and repair relationships. When you involve them in community service projects, you're showing them that they have both the power and obligation to contribute to others' well-being. Seneca, despite his demanding career as a businessman and advisor to emperors, prioritized his role as a teacher and mentor to young people. He understood that sharing wisdom with the next generation was one of the most important investments he could make in society's future. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end, he wrote. The end of each generation's leadership must give way to the beginning of new leadership with strong character foundations. The Stoic approach to raising children focuses on virtue development rather than just achievement or happiness. While contemporary parenting often emphasizes academic success, extracurricular accomplishments, and social popularity, Stoic-influenced parenting prioritizes courage, justice, discipline, and wisdom. These character qualities determine how children will use whatever talents and opportunities they develop throughout their lives. This doesn't mean being harsh or demanding perfection from children. Instead, it means consistently modeling the behavior you want to see, creating opportunities for them to practice virtue, and helping them understand the connection between their choices and their character. When your child faces a decision about whether to include a lonely classmate in their friend group, you help them think through the long-term benefits of kindness rather than just avoiding short-term social awkwardness. Start implementing this secret by examining what you're actually teaching through your daily behavior. Children learn more from what they observe than what they're told. If you want them to be honest, they need to see you telling the truth even when it's inconvenient. If you want them to be helpful, they need to watch you assisting neighbors, friends, and strangers regularly. If you want them to be resilient, they need to observe you handling setbacks with grace and determination. Create intentional opportunities for character development through family traditions and activities. Involve children in choosing charitable causes to support and volunteering together. Include them in neighborhood improvement projects so they learn that communities require active participation. Encourage them to develop relationships with elderly relatives and neighbors so they understand their obligations to different generations. Pay attention to the stories you tell children and the heroes you celebrate in your family. Share examples of people throughout history who chose courage over comfort, justice over personal advantage, and service over selfishness. Help them understand that real heroism usually happens through daily choices rather than dramatic moments. This long-term perspective helps you maintain patience during difficult parenting phases. The toddler who refuses to share toys is learning about boundaries and autonomy that will eventually develop into healthy adult relationships. The teenager who argues with your decisions is developing critical thinking skills that will help them resist peer pressure and make independent moral choices throughout their life. Remember that you're not just raising your own children, you're contributing to the character development of future parents, leaders, workers, neighbors, and citizens. The child who learns empathy in your home might become a doctor who treats patients with exceptional compassion. The teenager who develops integrity through your guidance might become a business leader who prioritizes ethics over profits. The young person who practices service in your family might become a community organizer who brings people together to solve problems. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote about his duty to future generations. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. The end of your active parenting years will give way to decades of watching your influence ripple outward through the character of the people you helped shape. This understanding of multi-generational impact brings us to our conclusion, where we'll explore how to integrate all 6 secrets into a comprehensive approach to community transformation that begins immediately and continues throughout your lifetime. These 6 ancient Stoic secrets form a complete blueprint for transforming your community through practical action. You've learned to find hope by focusing on the helpers around you, to use whatever influence you have to lift others up, and to turn every interaction into an opportunity for kindness. You've discovered how to actively build the community you want to live in, how individual acts of service create meaningful change, and how raising children with strong values influences generations to come. But knowledge without action remains merely philosophy. The real transformation begins when you choose one secret that resonates most strongly with your current situation. Maybe it's starting to notice helpers instead of focusing on problems when you watch the news tonight. Perhaps it's using your social media platform tomorrow to highlight a local business or cause you genuinely support. Or it could be approaching that challenging neighbor with kindness instead of avoidance. Start there. Practice that one secret consistently for a week, paying attention to how it changes both your experience and others' responses. Then gradually add the others, building your community impact one relationship and one action at a time. Remember Marcus Aurelius leading the Roman Empire through unprecedented challenges while maintaining his commitment to justice and service. Think of Seneca using his wealth and influence to support education and infrastructure that benefited ordinary citizens. Consider Epictetus teaching that every person, regardless of their circumstances, has the power to contribute meaningfully to their community through daily choices. These weren't perfect people living in ideal conditions. They were human beings facing real obstacles, using practical wisdom to create positive change despite uncertainty, opposition, and limited resources. The same principles that helped them build stronger communities 2,000 years ago can help you transform your neighborhood, workplace, and relationships today. Your community is waiting for someone to take the first step. When you find hope by focusing on helpers, you inspire others to look for positive examples too. When you use your influence responsibly, you model how platforms should serve the common good. When you show kindness in difficult interactions, you give others permission to respond with grace instead of anger. When you actively build community connections, you create spaces where relationships can flourish. When you help individuals one at a time, you demonstrate that meaningful change happens through personal action. When you raise children with strong values, you invest in decades of positive impact. Every thriving community was built by people who decided to be part of the solution rather than just observers of problems. Your neighborhood, workplace, and relationships are shaped by the choices you make every single day. You have everything you need to begin creating positive change right now. If these ancient Stoic secrets have provided practical guidance for your community building journey, I'd be grateful if you'd like this video and share it with someone who wants to make a positive difference in their community. Your support helps us reach more people seeking to transform ancient wisdom into modern action. Subscribe to Stoic Vivu for more content that turns timeless philosophy into practical tools for building stronger communities and relationships. Together, we're creating a movement of people committed to positive change through authentic character and consistent service. Your community transformation starts today.